Okay, 3-minute warning. We're going to get started in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. State Federal, we usually try to start right on time. I'm waiting for the ranking member. She'll be back in a moment. So we will come to order at this time. And I would like to ask a representative who is retiring, so to speak, or won't be back for a while. That's Representative Pimani. Representative Pimani, if you would lead us in the pledge, we would be much obliged. Great job, Representative. Much obliged. Okay, today we have two measures. They're both interim study measures. They are HB 1041 relative to establishing a commission to investigate the USS Liberty incident and its aftermath. And then secondly is HB 1485, establishing a committee to study the totality of circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 epidemic. So, Madam Clerk, if you have a note from the House Clerk, if you could just read that so it's clear. This is, we're not voting on bills today. We're not voting on resolutions. We're voting on interim study recommendations. If you could read that, please.
Okay, this is from Clerk Paul C. Smith. This is a reminder as we enter interim study. It's important to remember there are two options: recommended for future legislation or not recommended for future legislation. Additionally, given the nature of things this term, a reminder that your committee ends up deadlocked on these recommendations, then it can be reported without recommendation. However, for interim study, we do not have two separate statements. The chair should write a simple statement as the committee report, such as, the committee was unable to reach a consensus of whether to recommend future legislation or not. So that is the advice from the clerk.
Thank you, Madam Committee Clerk. Okay, at this time, I want to thank the members from this committee who did serve in the subcommittee that met to go over these two measures that we did refer to interim study. And thank you, Representative Mannion, for chairing both of those efforts. So at this time, Representative Mannion, I'm going to look to you to start with the HB 1041, the USS Liberty incident. And I'm looking for a motion, and then we'll have subsequent discussion.
I move recommend for future legislation.
Second.
Moved by Representative Mannion for favorable future legislation, seconded by Representative Gagné. Representative Mannion, would you please speak to your motion?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we went over the bill, and we all understood that when we first put it into the interim study, that the bill itself as written had issues, especially with like the membership. There was people who came here and testified and said they didn't want anything to do with being on the commission. So for future legislation, one of our suggestions would be that it be scoped down to be like a House committee with a much smaller scope in that respect. And one of the important things is whatever the outcome of this, it needs to be sent, the output report needs to be sent to our federal delegation, because they should use this as something that they need to use the powers that they have at their level to investigate further. There's only so many things that we're going to be capable of doing as a state. We don't have access to a lot of this information. So whatever we do, whatever testimony we record, that should be sent to our federal delegation.
Thank you, Representative. I want to say a couple of words about the measure. I know there are some people who are watching and will watch. So what this measure had to do with, what it involved, HB 1041, was an incident in the Mediterranean Sea in 1967 during the Six-Day War between Israel and its surrounding Arab states. And the USS Liberty was an American naval vessel that was attacked by the Israelis, and many American sailors were injured and killed. The ship was badly damaged, and this was in 1967. Israel subsequently apologized, but there have been issues and questions that have lingered. Obviously, we're talking about it here in 2024 in this committee room. And so this measure was brought forth by the sponsors, and you'll all recall there were some survivors of that ship who traveled great distances from Missouri and Virginia to come here to speak to this, and their hope was that we would take some sort of action that would more than just shine a light on what happened, but would be an impetus for some action that would be meaningful to provide some redress to the survivors and to the memories of those who were lost. So we spent a lot of time on this in committee, as you'll recall, and we ended up referring it to interim study. And thank you, Representative Mannion, for your initial comments. Representative Gagnon, you seconded the motion, and I believe you also were on the subcommittee, and you also are a Navy man. Do you have some thoughts or some words to the motion?
I do. My bottom line question would be for the federal delegation is why was there a gag order imposed on the crew and on the JAG officer who investigated this incident? Why was the people involved, those who were wounded, the survivors, number one, why was that ship there in the first place? An unarmed ship, unescorted. I believe, this is my opinion, I believe that the administration at the time didn't want to start anything that would lead to international conflict. That's my opinion. I am pro-Israel. However, I know what a flag looks like when it's flying from midships. It's big enough to be seen for like a mile away. So why was that done? And why was it, my term, whitewashed by the American administration at the time?
And I'll offer another comment myself, and of course, everybody here is welcome to weigh in as well. I think a lot of us are. I am a history person. Many of you are as well, and I see value in shining a light on this important history in this part of the world. Israel has been very much prominently in the news forever, but particularly since a year ago, October 7th, and there's a war is going on there in that part of the world now, and we have people deployed there. Americans are in that theater. So just the fact that we are talking about this, and there are some people listening, raises awareness about some of the history there, some of the military people who we lost. And I think it's important to use this to have us pay more attention to this part of the world that is so important. So there are some thoughts from me. Other thoughts or comments or questions for the subcommittee chair? Representative Shurtleff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for you, Representative Mannion, and that is, has any other state passed this legislation?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. That's one that I posed formally and informally to some of the veterans who came here. And we're always interested in what other states do with things that we're looking at. And to my knowledge, to our knowledge, no other state has taken the action that we've been asked to take here.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
If this legislation should pass, how much could a committee actually do? You wouldn't be subpoenaing anyone other than maybe hearing some of the shipmates that went through this ordeal, and my heart is with them as a veteran. And I just worry, are we giving them false feeling that something finally, after 67 years, going to be accomplished?
Thank you for that, Representative. If this, we're going to vote on it shortly. If this were to be recommended for future action, then someone, it depends who's in the mix, who gets elected, it would be up to someone, an original sponsor or someone sympathetic to the original intent would need to submit an LSR, and the language I think would be different. I think the language would reflect some of the recommendations we just heard from the subcommittee chair. So to your good question as to where this might go, it's kind of to be determined. It would depend upon who wants to take the time to sponsor it and work up some new language with OLS. Mr. Subcommittee Chair, you heard the question. What do you say to that?
I think we've also made it very clear as a committee, like even when the gentlemen were here testifying before us, that there was not much as the state of New Hampshire we can do. Like what we could do is have them come in, testify on the record. We'd have it filmed in for posterity. It would be on the internet forever, and we can send those things to the federal delegation where they would have much more resources. And they can they can issue subpoenas and get the information that they're looking for. But it's kind of like those guys have been going around, and we're like the first state to actually take them seriously. What they've been doing for like decades now is just they go on podcasts wherever they can, try to get their message out there, but that's like the limitation. This is like a level up from that, I think, and it's showing them more respect than just relegating them to the podcast sphere.
And that's a comment that I made to them when they were here. I said, we're listening to you. This is New Hampshire. Every bill gets a hearing. And you need to know, as you heard me tell them, as Representative Mannion just said, you're being heard. And in perpetuity, the recording, the YouTube is out there. I'm sure they've looked at it and shared it. And that's, if nothing else, that their voice has been given, has been heard. Any other comments or questions or anything, Representative Rollins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My feeling is that we owe all these men on this ship an answer to what happened that day so that they know, so that these men can finally have closure after all these years. That's all I have to say. They need closure.
Thank you, Representative. Anything else? Seeing no hands, Madam Clerk.
Actually, I do. I'm sorry.
Representative Siebert, your red light is on. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No, I just, it seems like also something we could have already done, like send them the recording we already have, right, to our federal delegation and ask them these questions. Just a thought. Also,
Yeah, thank you, Representative. So I don't know that we have specifically, because we haven't finalized action on this measure, we haven't sent anything formally to the delegation, but I think that once we vote on this, I think would be appropriate to share the results of the vote and on this to the delegation and elsewhere. Is that
okay.
is
Yeah,
that,
I guess. Yeah. I feel bad telling them we can do something we can't do and then have to have them come back and testify again. I mean, they were already thankful to have been here once, and I know the trip isn't cheap and all that. And it's like, it seems like we could have already done that, versus, but, I get it. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I hear you. I agree. You could tell we're all sympathetic to these survivors and what they're trying to accomplish. Thank you for that, Representative Massimilla.
I just think it's important that they realize we're limited in what we can do, but we're going to do as much as we can.
Agree, and I think we convey that to them. And I know they appreciated that there were some people that were listening and trying to take some sort of action. Other comments, questions, anything? Representative Levitt?
Good job, Representative Manning, on that with the interim study and getting it this far, because I think a lot of these veterans really do need to get closure on this because it's very important to them. So great job, Rep. Mannion.
Agreed. As I've already said, thank you for your work on the subcommittee. Representative Lloyd?
I just wanted to thank you, sir. Thank you. It's been a while. So I just wanted to go on record as saying I believe that everybody has the ability to appeal a decision that they don't feel was investigated fully and extensively. And I also just wanted to say that I fully, appreciate those veterans who did come out here, and I do feel like they need their closure. I would recommend that if this moved forward in any type of legislation, that we keep in mind our limited ability as well, as has already been stated, in that we don't have the jurisdiction to investigate this. All we can really do is recommend that others investigate it with their capability. But that's my 2 cents.
Yes, agreed. Anything else? Okay, seeing no other hands, one last comment from me. There is a New Hampshire piece to this. There were some New Hampshire people on the ship. There's a high-ranking officer who I think very recently just passed away. Who, yes, Commander Lewis. Was that the name? Right. So there was a New Hampshire presence on the ship to make that more relevant to that measure being heard here. Anything else? Seeing no hands, then, Madam Clerk, the motion before us is ought to pass in a future iteration of HB 1041. If you read the roll.
Okay, ought to pass future legislation. Representative Rollins.
Yes.
Representative Lundgren.
Yes.
Representative Katsiouforis.
Yes.
Representative Levitt.
Yes.
Representative Gagny.
Yes.
Representative Primonti.
Yes.
Okay, Representative Mannion.
Yes.
Representative Shurtleff.
Yes.
Representative Massmilla. Representative Boris isn't here?
Yes, I am.
She is. Okay. All right. Representative Carey, yes. Representative Toll is not here. Representative Judy, not here. Representative Lloyd.
Yes.
Representative O'Neill is not here. Representative Siebert. Yes. Okay. All right. And the chair?
Chair votes yes.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Does that sound right? 14. And no nays?
Okay, 14-0. Thank you, Madam Clerk. That is our recommendation at 1041. Now, our other measure is HB 1485. That is with regard to the committee, establishing a committee to study the totality of circumstances surrounding the COVID-19 epidemic. Again, Representative Mannion chaired that subcommittee that did the interim study work on this measure. Representative Mannion, I look to you for a motion on this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm moved that we recommend for future legislation.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Again, Representative Gagny seconds the motion of the subcommittee chair. Representative Mannion, would you speak to your motion?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So there is currently a committee that is studying the New Hampshire response to this. The bill, I spoke to the Bill Prime on this one, and his explanation, it makes sense to me. It was more, this is more about a much larger scope of the circumstances. So it would be like the influence from the federal government, the efficacy of Operation Warp Speed, any of the non-governmental organizations that may have had influence within the state, whether it be through the state itself, through the towns, whatever, like directly circumventing the state. I think it's we decided that it would be worth investigating. Once again, we're kind of at the limitation where we can't get all the information we may want from the federal government, but it's something that we could definitely like ask the towns and things of those. Like, was there anything not from the New Hampshire state, but perhaps from the federal government or non-government organizations that may have influenced your decisions that you made at the local level?
Representative Mannion, what was the vote? Was it a unanimous vote in
Yeah, it's
subcommittee?
unanimous. 4-0. Both of these were 4-0.
Okay, that's what I thought we had. Representative Gagny, you seconded this. Do you want to speak to your second?
No, I think the subcommittee chair spoke eloquently enough, and I back him up.
Thank you, Representative Gagny, and thank you for your eloquence, Representative Mannion. Questions, thoughts, comments from anyone? Representative Siebert.
Yeah, so I watched some of the videos from the current committee that is taking place. And I actually believe they're getting very good information, actually, that needed to be addressed. Definitely. It turns out like our state only had, really old plans for like hurricane response is what they just referred to. And so there were obviously like gaps in the system that needed to be dealt with, that type of thing. Just things needed to be updated. And obviously the world has updated since then. So I believe that stuff is really good information, and that type of thing we need solutions we need to seek in the future for future legislation. I'm not sure how much we need to really get into the weeds and how much ends up being just exploring conspiracies and seeing which things fit our narrative at any given time. It seems like a lot that can go into a lot of different directions, as we saw when we had testimony. And so while opinions are important, I also think that we really need to directly do what can immediately affect our citizens and really help them out if there's a natural disaster or anything else that can happen, you know, within that time frame. I see that getting done first. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. And my understanding is the prime sponsor, if he is reelected, is interested in taking your work and your recommendations and putting something together for the next term, if he is back. Other comments, questions? Seeing no hands, then let us take up the motion, which is ought to pass in the future, or a version of this should move forward in the future. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Okay, ought to pass future legislation. Representative Rollins.
Yes.
Representative Lundgren.
Yes.
Representative Kachaforis. Representative Levitt. Representative Gagny.
Yes.
Representative Piemonte.
Yes.
Representative Mannion.
Yes.
Representative Shurtleff.
Yes.
Representative Massmilla. Representative Boris.
Yes.
Representative Carey, yes. Representative Lloyd.
Yes.
Representative Siebert.
No.
Okay, so we have 13 yeses. Oh, Chair.
Chair votes aye.
Okay, 13 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, 13-1, and that concludes all of our business. Again, thank you to everyone on the subcommittees, and I want to take before we close out, I want to take just a few moments to thank you all for your work and for your involvement with this committee. I really appreciate it. I think we spent a lot of time on over 20 measures, not quite what education deals with, but we had a decent load, and obviously we spent a lot of time on some of these, and with a lot of testimony from many people who came in that we honored the sponsors and those who cared about all these different measures by giving them the attention we gave them. I mentioned Representative Piemonte is retiring for now anyway. And there are others of us who won't be back. Who knows? There is an election in a couple of weeks. There's another member of our committee who will not be back that I'm sure about. And if I'm, besides Representative Piemonte, if I'm missing anybody else, I apologize. But I do want to recognize the representative from Pennacook, Representative Steve Shurtleff, who has let it be known that he is will not be in the ballot on November 5th in a couple of weeks. So I just want to thank Representative Shurtleff and express my deep appreciation for your very helpful role in this committee and for all your previous work. I'll say 20 years ago, 2004, when I was a young man, there was another young man. I ran for rep out of Concord that year. And I noticed, of course, you notice the other people that are running, and I noticed some of the other names. And one of the names that was running in Concord was Representative Shurtleff. It's the first time I'd heard his name, and he was in a different district. And he was successful. He won, and I think that was, if my math's right, that's the first of 10 consecutive election victories for the representative from Pennacook. I lost, and it took me 12 years to get here. I always wanted to be here, and 12 years later I got here. Now I am wielding a gavel and speaking about Representative Shurtleff. So that's all. I just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge Representative Shurtleff's contributions. And I know there's a couple others wanted to say a couple words. This is a little bit like unanimous consent. Before I gavel this to an end, and Representative Gagny, I actually have some pink cards that we'll give to Representative Shurtleff with the notes in the back. And Representative Gagny, is he here?
Right here.
Oh. I thought, Representative Gagny, well, I've already said I don't want to talk too long, but Representative Gagny doesn't always ask for the microphone. He's asked. He didn't put how many minutes, but it's the bill number just says Steve, and Representative Gagny said he supports the bill. So.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to dispense with the witness protocol and be free to speak.
Yes, as the chair, I do have some measure of authority, and I will grant you permission to speak freely or to speak honestly and move about freely.
I think we're getting some historic photos. Yeah. Right here. Linda.
Steve, this is not a roast, okay? This is a testimonial of what we went through, probably like 37 years before we met again, right? When you were chair of criminal justice in 2009. I want you to remember, we keep bringing that up, the night before graduation from the academy. Remember the snowball fight? It was fun. The guy went down to assess damage. We went crazy the night before because it was like the big release, right? That's when the police academy was very intense, wasn't it? 6 weeks. Yeah. We did more listening than anything else, right? Sergeant Sandler was one of the people there. He became the mayor of Nashville, the police chief of Nashville for a while. I remember my time with you when my first term in 2009, you were chair of criminal justice. And I remember we talked, and I looked at you and I says, I think I know him, but but I can't place it. I mean, there was like 30 some odd years apart. I remember looking at him and I remember talking to you, and I remember telling you that I've got one mouth and 2 ears. So this term, I want to listen way more than talk. And you says, that's very wise. It was very wise. So in conversation, we found out that we had graduated. You didn't have a picture, and I brought it in and showed you, and you asked me if I could make a copy, and you made me a copy, which is why there are two going down. It was pretty cool going back somewhat. Now you and I have both had flashbacks from various events. You in Vietnam, me as a police officer in Manchester, and I remember you and I talked about that without going into any detail. We were able to help each other out. What else do I have to tell? I really nothing else. It's been a pleasure serving with you. I remember I used to be able, when you were when you were a speaker, I was able to take my grandkids up to the office and we had a conversation. We may not have agreed politically all that much. However, we both love this country, and we'd probably do it again, wouldn't we? I think so too. So I was not a ground pounder, which is why I joined the Navy. I'm a Winnebago kind of guy. I didn't want to crawl through mud, and I want 3 squares in Iraq, which was what I got in the Navy. So,
I just say that, that was your first year in the House when I chaired criminal justice.
that's right.
As you remember back then, red light maybe? I don't want anybody else to hear me.
Representative Gaddy, will you take any questions?
Absolutely.
Representative Shurtleff is
Would you
recognized.
believe, in 2008, when you came to the House, and served on criminal justice, I made a deal with the ranking member, our good friend David Welch, that no side would caucus. The bills, nobody would talk about them. The first hand going up, that's who we'd recognize, and we'd either vote it up or down. No politics. The politics stopped at the door. And at the end of the first year, my friend, you said to me, this is my first year in the House. I finished. On our committee, I'm still not sure who's a Democrat and who's a Republican. And I remember saying to you, as a committee chair, I could not ask for a better compliment than that. So thank you once again, my friend. Thank you.
I salute you.
Thank you, Representative Gagny, and thank you for the. Usually we don't use props, but we're in a unique situation today. I'm looking at the photo. I recognize Representative Shurtleff for sure. He looks about the same as he did then. Representative Gagny, I would never know this was you in this photo, but. That's right. Representative Gaddy was and is a wrestler. I don't think he wrestles as much as he did. I have two more pink cards. Representative Carey, who right to my left, submitted a pink card, and Representative Carey is going to take the witness chair. Or maybe not. Representative Carey has left the room. Oh, okay. She's back.
So Representative Shurtleff, I met many years ago when he was playing Santa Claus, and my children, who were toddlers at the time, were so thrilled to meet Santa Claus. He was volunteering for a nonprofit in Pennacook, the Pennacook Historical Society. And little did I know that our paths would meet again in the State House more than once. But as I thought of his service, not only to his community, but to our state, I could think of only one symbol of his service that would be appropriate. It would have to be something made in New Hampshire, and it would have to be something involving the State House. And so this was made by local artist Diane Delaney, and it is for posterity for you, for all of your service.
You don't have to share it. That's a bomb. Oh my God.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, wow.
Representative Carey, I'm going to ask that you take that, and the only camera that can show what that looks like. I know people want to see what it looks like. If you would mind taking just a moment and returning to the chair and just holding that so people can see. I know there are people watching and who will watch. It appears to be a painting of some sort.
Okay, so
That's where you live.
So this is artist Diane, she goes by Dana, Delaney. She is an artist from Kentucky, New Hampshire, who has a studio in Concord at the Concord Women's Club. And it is a painting of the skyline of Concord with the state capitol dome. So.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. I have two more pink cards. One is from Representative Rollins, who's right here. So Representative Rollins, you can, if you want to take the witness stand or speak from here, I'll let you decide.
My pictures to your right. You look at me,
Good looking guy.
25.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I told Steve a while ago, last week, that I was going to do a roast on him. I planned on 2 or 3 hours. Representative Moffett came to his rescue and said I only had a couple of minutes. So I'm going to shorten this up. Before I get started, I want everybody in here to know there's nothing mean, there's nothing vicious about what I'm going to say. It's just all about 2 guys that came together, that became very good friends, that love to rib each other every time we get together. Let me make sure I start in the beginning. Just got my highlights. When I first became the term, I was as co-chairman, one of my jobs was to do the seating arrangement. And so when I did the seating arrangement, I put Steve being beside of me as the highest ranking Democrat member. Halfway through the session, I turned around and looked at him and I said, the real reason I put you beside of me is so I could keep an eye on you. But I said, I've learned real fast that I really messed that up because you're the one keeping an eye on me. And let me get down the line here. Another time, Steve was sitting there before session. Linda Messamilla comes in. And I jumped up and I said, Linda, I said, get his autograph now. She goes, what for? I go, he's famous. What are you talking about? I said, he was on Chronicle last night. I said, for the Concord Hockey Arena. I said, get his autograph or he starts charging for it. So we all had a good conversation about the Chronicle and everything, and it was all good. Shortly after that, he gets even with me. We're down in the cafeteria line. Okay, I'm 2 or 3 people ahead of him, all right? And he bellows out for the whole cafeteria to hear, hey, everybody, you might as well find another place to eat. When Skip's in front of us and there's going to be nothing left to eat by the time he gets through the line. This is the way we should get along in this. Shortly after that, I'm going to shorten this up. A while back, the last session in committee this year, I gave you a POW in my hat like this. And I wanted you to have that. I wanted you to have that for your service as a combat veteran, Vietnam combat veteran. What you had to put up with from the American people was horrendous. I wanted you to have a good token. I know you have friends probably that you lost, people that were over there that are missing in action. Wanted you to have something to remember them by. And it was very important. And you were touched by it, and I hope from time to time you might even wear it. Okay? So what's he do? The next time we're in session, he comes over to me and he hands me a black cloth bag, right? And there's something in it. And he said, I really appreciate the hat, but I'd like to let you have this gift as a thank you to you. And I'm feeling this cloth bag and I'm saying to myself, this feels like a 50 cal round. And I said, I know what he's doing. He's going to give me that 50 cal round. He's going to go to security and they're going to drag me out of here. But when I opened the bag, it was a dummy round. It had a notch in it. It's a bottle opener. So every time I will open a beer, I will use that can opener, bottle opener, and I will always remember you. Okay? But one of the last things, this has gone on even to today, but last week when we were in here for session, I'm back in the LOB, I'm getting out, I'm walking for the door. Car comes up, so I didn't even look, I just motioned him to go ahead and go ahead of me. Steve rolls down the window. He says, Skip, go ahead. He said, age before beauty. And I said, thank you, and I started to walk, and then I turned around and I looked at him like a deer in the headlights, and I said, you just want to run me over, don't you? And he goes, the thought's on my mind, you better get moving. Steve, all of us are going to miss you. I wish there were more people like you on both sides of the aisle where we could all agree to disagree, but still shake hands, give a hug, and razz each other once in a while. You are so going to be missed. I hope from time to time that you come by the State House, stop and say hi, and I wish you the best in whatever you do the rest of your life. And someday, I hope we run into each other and we can share a beer for these old times' sakes. You're a great man. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Skip, so much.
I have one more pink card, but some other ones are coming in. So we'll do what we always do. These pink cards come in, and we will stay here until every person gets to be heard. That's how we do things in New Hampshire. The last committee card I have is from Representative Massimilla, the representative from Littleton. The bill, again, is Steve. Representative Massimilla supports the bill and wants to speak about an eyeglass incident, apparently.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just sort of an illustration of Steve's generosity. I was uncharacteristically late for session one day, and I realized as I'm looking in my abyss of my pocketbook that I don't have my glasses. Well, everybody knows if you don't have your glasses, that also affects your hearing. So after looking for a while and sighing a lot, an arm length reading my notes, and then polling my seatmates for spare glasses, lunch break came along mercifully for everybody in my section. So after lunch was over, I came back into the chamber, and Steve's sitting there with a paper bag. And in the paper bag, there was a pair of glasses. He had gone down to Rite Aid and picked up a pair of glasses. And although the glasses didn't really set a fashion trend, they definitely were useful for me. And also, he saved his seatmates' sanity because I didn't have to whine anymore. So thank you, Steve, for your kindness, your thoughtfulness, and your generosity.
Representative, will you take any questions?
Sure.
Representative Sherlock, do you have any question or comment for the representative?
I have a comment. You know, I almost thought about calling in to get a substitute for today, and with mixed emotions, I'm so glad I'm here. And thank you all for the very kind words, and especially my right, well, everybody being next to me, and Larry. And you know, when I came to the House 20 years ago, somebody told me there were two great committees in the New Hampshire House, Fish and Game, and I'm sorry, State and Fed and Veterans Affairs and one other. And I can't remember the other committee, but it is still State and Fed and Veterans Affairs among the top two committees in this House. And I want to thank the members. This is committee brought back memories of when I chaired criminal justice, and back when Larry first started in the House, where we're Democrats and Republicans, but on every bill we vote on, we always put the best interests of the people of New Hampshire. And I really think I saved my best committee for last. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Representative. Representative, go ahead.
I have a comment that was sent in by Representative Brian Sullivan. He was one of our seatmates. So could I read that?
Please.
Brian says, I'm deeply indebted to Steve for the roles that I have played in my 7 years in the House. After serving a single year in the House, Steve surprised me by asking me to serve as chair of the House Labor Committee. I pushed back a bit, but his confidence in me persuaded me to accept, and I'm glad I did. For the last 2 years, I've had the honor and the privilege of being seatmate to Steve on the House floor. I so appreciated the wisdom, the history, and most of all, the humor that I shared with Steve on my left and Linda on my right. It was a historic session in so many ways, and it's so precious to share it with Steve and Linda. Steve, I wish you all the best. I hope that you come back to the State House now and again, even if it's only to play with the elevators. Good to end where you started. Wishing you all the best, Representative Brian Sullivan.
Very nice. Thank you, Representative. That was our last pink card from committee. However, as you all know, as so often happens, sometimes people come in late and they submit pink cards. I have a few more. I have one here from Speaker Sherm Packard, and so he is here. Mr. Speaker, you're welcome to speak.
How formal should I be, Mr. Chairman?
We're suspending the rules somewhat today, Mr. Speaker, so you have great freedom, great leeway.
This is bittersweet. Steve and I have been friends for almost 20 years that we've known each other. And for the last 6 years, when Steve was Speaker, I used to meet with him once a week, to go over what was happening. That's when I was in the minority office, and Steve and I had some terrific conversations because we both love history, and we had some terrific conversations about historical figures, and I'm going to miss those, my friend. The relationship I think that Steve and I have proves that you can disagree on different subjects, you can disagree on philosophy, but you can still be good friends. And I think that's what Steve and I have been for the whole time that he and I have been in the House together. You can put the rhetoric aside and you can truly disagree philosophically without being disagreeable. And for the past 4 years that I've been Speaker, Steve and I used to sit down, and occasionally I'd give him a call and I said, want to come in and talk for a few minutes? And that usually was about an hour. And I'm going to miss those talks, my friend. And the House is losing a very valuable member. But what can I say? I hope you enjoy your new job. I understand it pays a little bit more than what you're making now. Yeah, just a little bit, but of course that won't take much to get paid more than we have paid now. But I hope you do well in your job as County Commissioner. I have a few things here I'd like to read, and then I have a presentation to make to you. This is a declaration. Whereas the Honorable Stephen J. Shurtleff is retiring from public service as a state representative who has served the community of Merrimack District 16 for 20 years. Whereas the Honorable Stephen J. Shurtleff began his career as a state representative in 2004 and served in the following capacities: Majority Leader, Minority Leader, Speaker of the House, and most frequently, Speaker Emeritus. And that will probably be, I think you're the only one in the history that has been given that honor. Whereas the Honorable Stephen J. Shurtleff is the only member of the New Hampshire House to serve all 4 leadership positions and hold a position as a committee chair. And whereas the Honorable Stephen J. Shurtleff is a Vietnam veteran and a retired supervisor, deputy United States Marshal, and whereas he has dedicated countless hours to the advocacy for veterans both here in New Hampshire and nationwide, and has been their champion for accessible and care and benefits. Declared that the New Hampshire House of Representatives does give its highest accolades and plaudits to our former Speaker of the New Hampshire House, our esteemed colleague and mentor and friend, and be it further declared by virtue of my signature below, the New Hampshire House of Representatives also gives its best wishes to the Honorable Stephen Shurtleff in his new endeavors. His legacy of hard work, dedicated leadership, and bipartisanship will endure. He will be missed. And if you want to come up, Steve, I want to like to present something to you. I'd like you to present this plaque to you, Steve, for your 20 years of service to the people of New Hampshire. The plaque means a lot. We see you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Shurtleff shared that he was going to call in for a sub for this session. Subs on state federal, yes, it has happened, but we're all very glad that Representative Shurtleff is here. I do have some more pink cards that came in late. We're going to let everyone, as is our custom in New Hampshire.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't have proved it.
Well, the next pink card that I have here, and sometimes we do set limits, 2 to 3 minutes, and I'm not going to go there yet because the next speaker, I think, also rates some whatever flexibility he desires. Another speaker, a former speaker Sean Jasper, is in the House. Welcome, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Shurtleff, former Speaker Shurtleff, I really have to echo almost all of the comments that Speaker Packard made. You and I had a very similar relationship when I was Speaker and you were Minority Leader. But it goes well beyond that. And I'll go back just about 10 years. And I think we all know what happened in December of 2014. And if you don't, you can ask somebody. But I always have plan A and plan B. And so when I was running for Speaker, plan A was to lose. Plan B was to win, and wasn't a very well-developed plan. But a very integral part of my becoming Speaker was Representative Shurtleff, who showed something that far too few politicians in this country, and I've thought of this a lot when we've seen what happened with the Speaker's race in Washington several times now, that Steve Shurtleff put politics well below what he saw, and I believed as well, was best not only for the New Hampshire legislature, but for the people of New Hampshire. And he rallied his caucus to support me. And he didn't ask for anything in return other than that his caucus be treated with fairness. And that's what I tried to do. But I don't think there's anything better that you can say about a person, particularly one in politics, other than that he believed that putting the state and the legislature first was his duty. And I think he's done that throughout his career. I listen to him frequently on the radio when I'm driving up to Concord in the morning. And he's always taken that position. And that is really something that is far too rare today. He really has my undying respect for what he's done over the years. And I am, even as a Republican, very glad that he got to serve as Speaker. And certainly think he is well deserving of that first title of Speaker Emeritus. There is one thing that I'm very, very jealous of Steve for, though, however. Well, you know, that's funny because when he became Speaker and I was Commissioner, people were constantly referring to me as Steve. And so, you know, it's funny that back with the story I'm about to tell, we both just had mustaches, and here we are today with our beards. So we could probably be hip brothers, and we said that brothers from another mother. But when the State House dome was being refurbished, and the eagle was stripped and was just, just didn't look very pretty at the time, but there was an opportunity to go all the way up and stand next to the eagle. Steve was in the State House, and I grabbed him, and we went up to the top and stood there. And Jim Rivers was up there taking pictures. He later photoshopped. So I had a gold helmet on, and Steve had a white one on, and that got photoshopped. My mother couldn't tell the difference. But what I'm jealous about is that I then had a conference to go to, and the eagle was finished and all gilded, and Steve got to go back up there again and have his picture taken with the gilded eagle. And by the time I got back from my trip, the staging was gone. But Steve, thank you for your years of friendship and for your showing people exactly what public service is all about. You've done it in so many ways for your whole life. You're going to continue to do that as a county commissioner, and you are just really to be applauded. Thank you so much for being my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you take any questions or comments if there is maybe one?
Of course, Mr. Chairman.
Just two things about Sean Jasper. First of all, when I was a minority leader, New England Cable News came to me and said, Mr. Speaker, we'd like to ask you a question about, and it was a bill that was very important to Democrats to be defeated and Republicans to be passed. And I said, what a golden opportunity. And I said, no, I can't. I said, no, I'm not the Speaker. I'm Steve Shirley. I'm Democrat. And so, but it was a test of my ethics. But the other thing I want to say is about Speaker Jasper. I went to him one time shortly after he won his election, and I said, Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that I know is important to our Democratic caucus. I hope that if it comes to a point that you can vote one way or the other, you'll support us and support this legislation. And I remember there are people in his caucus that felt differently about it. And the vote came up, and we all looked up at the score, and it was a tie vote, and all eyes were on Speaker Jasper. And he voted with us Democrats. It was a bill dealing with health care, and the bill passed by that one vote. And, I was shocked, but then again, I wasn't, because Speaker Jasper, like Speaker Packard, they both have always been people of their word. And it's so easy to be magnanimous and to do the right thing when you deal with people that share your same value. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, we have a few more pink cards. We have a individual here who has asked for 2 minutes, and that would be the minority leader, representative from Manchester, Representative Wilhelm. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and esteemed members of the committee. Representative Shurtleff, you have served many roles in this esteemed institution: Assistant Majority Leader, Chair of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, Majority Leader, Minority Leader, Speaker of the House, and now Speaker Emeritus. I also had the honor, like Representative Massimilla and Representative Sullivan, of sitting next to the Speaker during session, and learned so much by asking questions, by getting unsolicited advice and feedback, and learned so much about the history of the New Hampshire House and the state of New Hampshire. During my first term, when Representative Shurtleff was serving as Speaker, I sat in the back row, and to keep myself entertained and to be reporting to constituents about what was going on in the House, I would tweet from time to time and I started a hashtag called Shirtlifisms, which were little nuggets of humor that Speaker Shurtleff would share during session. And I'd like to share a few of those today. So one from June 27th, 2019, Speaker Shurtleff said, "I recently had a minor operation on my right knee. Apparently it was all those years of breakdancing that finally caught up with me." May 23rd, 2019, "I worked for 30 years in law enforcement, but never with the fashion police." April 11th, 2019, "The Speaker would never refer to any piece of legislation as a can of worms." And March 20th, 2019, "If I can't escape, nobody escapes." Mr. Speaker, I have a plaque here. It says, "Representative Steve Shurtleff, Speaker Emeritus, with gratitude and appreciation from your colleagues in the New Hampshire House Democratic Caucus, the New Hampshire House of Representatives, and the people of New Hampshire. Thank you for your service."
Thank you, Representative. Another photo. And by the way, I mentioned earlier in committee that many of us are history people in this committee. We had a interim study measure on the USS Liberty. We talked about the history. I believe that this is still being recorded, I believe. If it is, there's a lot of history that's being put on the World Wide Web via YouTube that I think some future historians will be very much interested to see or hear. And Representative Shurtleff, this is something you may or may not ever want to watch this, but I think it is being recorded for posterity. Okay, moving right along, we have a few more pink cards. The Honorable Marjorie Porter is in the House, former representative from Hillsborough. Welcome, Honorable Marjorie Porter.
They got a big chair here for me. Thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the committee and Speaker Shurtleff, I'm not going to talk long. I only asked for a minute, but I wanted to say thank you to Steve for teaching me the rules for voting. Vote your conscience, vote your district, vote your party. And I tried to follow those rules, and I thank him very much for sharing. And I still owe you an Italian meal, and I'm going to hold you to it this time, Steve. Okay. Thank you for all you've done for everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, former representative. I have a card here from David Welch. Is David is not in the, yes, he is, sure. Looks slightly different from the last time that I saw the Honorable David Welch. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you've noticed, somebody is supporting a beard, and I don't have one. And now, originally, I was under the weather when Linda called me, and I had prepared a letter for her to read in my place. I can do it now. So this is, Dear Linda, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment about my friend, Steve Shurtleff. As you may know, he became chairman of the House Criminal Justice Committee a few years ago, realizing that as a former federal marshal, he had no clue whatsoever about criminal law. He sat me near his chair so that I could prompt him from time to time. That was advantageous, as he needed a lot of prompting. As the term ground on, he must have realized that his expertise was telling everyone what to do. So eventually he became Speaker of the House. I was familiar with Steve by now and realized that he needed no prompting. I always thought that Steve was an honorable man, so imagine my surprise when he, in front of everyone, stole my thunder by vacating the chair in order to cast a deciding vote on the repeal of the death penalty. I had been a supporter of the death penalty for almost 30 years, and now I had decided to support repeal. I think it was an override vote. We overrode the governor's veto by 1 vote. It was my vote that did it, not his. I really can't forgive him for that. His true nature has become clear. Now he's running for an office that pays a salary. On top of that, he chose an election with no opponents. There is no joy in Mudville as he hurtles onward toward higher office. Again, I thank him for the opportunity to clear the air. I wish Steve all the best as he delves in the county government. I take heart that he cannot boss anyone around nor steal votes. Steve is an honorable man, and all kidding aside, he deserves his chance in an administrative job. I am proud to call Steve Shurtleff my friend. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Honorable David Welch. Would you take any questions or comments?
Why not?
Are there any questions or comments for the speaker?
I have a brief one. Thank you for asking. It was in my 3rd term when I became the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee. And David was a longtime chair of that committee and then became the ranking member. And if anybody was a mentor to me in the New Hampshire House, it was David. So often I would ask him for advice. And as I alluded to earlier when Larry spoke, David and I reached an agreement that neither side would caucus that year. We'd take the votes up as they came. And Speaker Norelli kept calling me into her office and saying, "You're not caucusing with the Democrats on criminal justice." I said, "Well, no." Well, she said, "Start doing it." And I said, "I can't. I gave David Welch my word and I can't go back on it." Well, that's, and for the rest of that session, we did not caucus. And David, even to this day, is still a role model and a mentor to me. And I thank him for everything and anything I've achieved just because of his help and his guidance. And thank you for being here today, my friend.
Oh. I have one comment. When Speaker Norelli became Speaker, it was a first for many years. And I went to the Speaker and I said, when we train the chairman, who's going to train the chairman? So I offered to go in and train the chairman. And Representative Knowles became the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee that year. And it was a good relationship. I got along good with everyone.
Well, I'll just add to that when Speaker Norelli became...
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll never master these rules. When Speaker Norelli became the Speaker in 2006, she was the first Democratic Speaker since before the American Civil War. So there was not a lot of knowledge out there for Democrats. And I attended your training over at the New Hampshire Technical Institute. And you were so kind, and our caucus so appreciated your spending, it was over 2 hours, talking to us about the committee process and about legislation. And it was so insightful. And that's the kind of person you are. Again, to steal a line from Speaker Jasper, putting people in government above politics. And I commend you for that. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Okay, next pink card is from a sitting representative. The Honorable Representative from Durham, Marjorie Smith, is in the House. Welcome, Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to say that I once chose to sit at State and Federal as a substitute, and I well remember the experience with mixed feelings, but I well remember the experience. I don't have to say much because for those of you who are in the House, I think you heard what I had to say about Steve in the last day of the session in June. And what has transpired just now has taken me down memory lane. I've been here since 1996 and have served under Sean, who decided to punish me once and put me on 2 committees. I served under Steve, who did not want me to be the chair of the committee I wanted to chair, and in return gave me another 2 positions in order to help ease the pain. Who have I forgotten? But everything that has been said today reflects something that I like to think all of us believe at some level, and that is that personal integrity and respect for each other and treating each other honestly is much more important than any piece of legislation that we might disagree on. And if we can find a little bit, just a little corner where we agree and start from there, we might be able to create a change in the climate in the New Hampshire House, because I believe a change would improve the quality of work for all of us. And if we were to do that, it would be because we understand the value of the principles that Steve Shurtleff has inspired in all of us. And he's not alone. There's no question about that, but he is certainly first among equals. And I don't quite know what we'll do without you, Steve, but we're going to try to muddle through. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Will you take any questions or comments?
If that's appropriate, of course.
Yes, I have the gavel, yes. Are there any questions or comments for the representative from Durham?
Representative Smith had such a great reputation when I came to this house. And when I was speaker, I did ask her to go on a committee that I know wasn't her first choice, but because of the circumstances, she did it, and she did it so well. I started out on the Judiciary Committee, and I think your first committee is always a special place in your heart, and Judiciary meant so much to me. And I thought of the possibilities of other people taking that chair, and I couldn't think of anybody better than Representative Smith to carry on the strong tradition of bipartisanship, fairness on a very important committee. And again, I thank her from the bottom of my heart. Instead of doing what she wanted to do, doing what she felt was the best thing to do under the circumstances, again, for our state and our New Hampshire legislature. So thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Okay, I have 4 more pink cards. One is asked for 1 minute, 3 minutes, and the other 2 didn't have any limit. So we'll head down the home stretch here. Representative Leishman, Peter Leishman, is he still? Yes, he is. Welcome, Representative Leishman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say thank you, Steve. For those of you that really don't know the Steve Shurtleff like I do, I've served in the House now, finishing up 12 terms, and Steve has always been a workhorse and not a show horse. The division I've been on in finance deals with Veterans Affairs, and Steve was always there whispering in my ear, trying to get things done for the veterans, the National Guard, and I thank you for that, Steve. There was one other issue that Steve worked very hard on this last term, and that was funding the retirees that lost their benefits more than a decade ago. There were about 1,600 of them. And with Steve's help and the other members, we got a bill through the House for $26 million to help fund those people that lost their benefits more than a decade ago. So thank you for that, Steve. And I am really going to miss you. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, Representative Bob Lynn. Representative Lynn there he is. Welcome, Representative Lynn, the honorable representative from Windham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I probably have the honor, or at least I hope I'm pretty sure I have the honor of being able to say that from what I've heard of all the other speakers, I've probably known Steve longer than anyone here, because my first interaction with Steve goes back, if you can believe this, 46 years to 1978. When I had just come to New Hampshire as an assistant U.S. attorney, and Steve, I believe, was relatively new in the U.S. Marshal's office in New Hampshire. And Bob Raish, who just recently passed away, a wonderful guy, was the United States Marshal at the time. And Bill Shaheen, who hired me, was the U.S. attorney at the time. And I remember one of the things I remember in particular about Steve is I recall there was a personnel shortage generally in the Marshal Service, and so that meant that deputy marshals were being sent around the country to travel, transporting prisoners and this and that, much more frequently than had sort of normally been the case. And so Steve was when I would be talking to him, he was always, I'm going to be on a plane tomorrow to, Timbuktu to transport somebody somewhere. It was just seemed to me like a very difficult time in terms of sort of personal sacrifices that people had to make. But Steve always, did it with a smile, and just that was part of what he had to do. But I remember my interactions with him then were always just wonderfully he was just wonderfully friendly and courteous and helpful. And then moving on a number of years when I was in the court system, and particularly when I served as Chief Justice of both the Superior Court and then later the Supreme Court, I had occasions to deal with Steve, and particularly when he was Speaker on things dealing with the budget, and those kind of things. Again, always straightforward. If he told you something, you could take it to the bank, and it was just a wonderfully positive relationship. And in my relatively brief time in the House, the last 4 years, again, nothing but completely positive relationship. It's just been a real pleasure to have the opportunity to work with you, Steve. And your record of public service is just outstanding, and I wish you the very best. Merrimack County will be very well served with your with your new position as county commissioner. So again, thank you very much for your service over all these so many years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's hard to believe how far back the chief and I go, and he hasn't changed a bit, which drives me crazy. But he's just as young as today as he was then. And back then, I think that U.S. Attorney's Office had to have been the finest law firm in the state of New Hampshire at the time, with the quality of prosecutors, and Bob Lynn is a prime example. And the number of cases they handled, in the intricacies and the types of crimes. And to watch Bob, how he has progressed up through the New Hampshire courts system to become Chief Justice, and to see him come back here to this body to finish, to serve, it just bodes well that the quality of people that run for the New Hampshire House. And I think a lot of the public must wonder sometimes, how can you pay somebody $100 a year and expect to get quality people that put dedication and service above financial gain? And Bob is a prime example of that. And it's that, to me, is the true New Hampshire advantage. And it's so good to have Bob back. And thank you for your very kind words.
Well, thank you also. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Dan Mason has asked for 3 minutes. Is Dan here? Yes, he is.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion denied.
Thank you to the committee here. So unlike everyone else that has come up to testify before, I'm a member of the staff, so a little different, a little nervous up here, so please bear with me. I've had the privilege of serving on the staff in the Democratic office since 2006, so middle of Speaker Shurtleff's second term. And so I've known Speaker Shurtleff for a very long time. And, you know, of course, before he was Speaker, he was Democratic leader or Majority Leader Shurtleff for a number of terms, and then Chair Shurtleff before that. And so we had a lot of time that he was in the Democratic office because as leader, he was someone that was here all the time, always present in the building. And as everyone in this room probably knows, in politics, a lot changes over the course of a decade or, 15 years. And you have some days that are really good and things are going really well, and then some days that are really bad and, out there in the world and, things aren't going, you're not feeling very good. And so what the point I want to make is that every day, day in, day out, we would come to work and you were there, courteous, kind, always with a smile on your face, a witty thing to say to help us feel better. And, over the course of time, how people that come into work every day in an environment, you really want leaders in front of you that, make you feel good about it. And we always had that with you as leader, no matter what role you were in. And I just, speaking for all the Democratic office staff, and I can't imagine that I wouldn't also be speaking for the overall staff in the building. So I just want to say thank you for the way you treated us over the time, and, best of luck, and thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Some of you remember the Tonight Show. Ed McMahon would do a thing with Johnny Carson. Some of you may remember. And to paraphrase Ed McMahon, I have in my hand the last pink card. And before I go to the last pink card, I'd like to just remind the committee members, a message came from an office somewhere asking that we clean out our desks and drawers. So just a reminder, if you haven't already done so. I saw that Representative Shurtleff, you were doing that earlier. I think I said make sure you clear that out. So thank you for jumping on that. So please take care of that. Also, before we leave, Deb's still here. If you wouldn't mind, committee members, like we did last year, if we get a photo real quick right up front here. And there is, the rules have been suspended. There are refreshments in room 210, I believe. So it's almost noon. So after our final speaker, everyone is welcome to please stop down there and have some refreshments. Okay, last pink card, Representative Gould, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here. I wanted to speak to something that I think has been hinted about, but not really laid out on the table, and that is about Representative Shurtleff humility. And so a couple of years ago, before I was elected, I've only served the one term, I had the privilege to play with a great cast of characters in a cemetery walk in Hopkinton. And the director was Peter Spalding's wife, Beth Spalding. So it's interesting, the county commissioner connection. But at any rate, I was amazed at what incredible actors there were, and having a love of history and Native American history that we share. I just saw Steve as another talented actor. Then I was elected, I came to the House, and here was this wonderful man who loved history and loved Native Americans, and he was very revered here in the House, it was clear. I didn't put two and two together. This year we started our rehearsals for the play we're doing this weekend, and I saw him, I was shocked because the two worlds collided. I still didn't remember he was from the previous cast, and I said, "Oh, Mr. Speaker, it's so good to see you here tonight." And he said, "Yeah, I figured I'd come back." And then I realized, oh dear, I acted with him 2 years ago and didn't put it together. But he was so humble, he said, "I'm easily forgettable. It's okay, Representative Gould. You are not at all easily forgettable." And in his character, they've got him scripted to talk about his character. You won't be shocked to hear was a representative from Hopkinton sent to Concord, and they're having him say delegate. and it's not a delegate. So a man of his stature should not be expected to say the wrong script. My mission this afternoon is to get that script changed for him so he can give an accurate portrayal of our role here. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker Emeritus.
Thank you, Representative Gould. Would you hit that red button, please? So that was our last pink card. We do have 2 or 3 people who are going to make some quick calls. Representative Massimiller is driving this. She'll put the calls on speaker, and they will be. You can do it right there. One of these calls I heard may be coming from Trump Force One. I'm not sure, but you laugh. But Representative Massimiller, she's going to work the technology. We have a phone speaker,
I'm going to
and
work the technology.
you just need to put
Scary.
your phone on speaker, call the person, and hold the phone up to the mic with the red light on. Okay, well, we're good to go. And I think you'll recognize
Okay,
both.
Pat, go ahead. You can go ahead.
Steve, this is absolutely wonderful. I'd let her get me in the loop. The only story I could give is what you've taught me through your leadership as the minority leader and as the Speaker of the House. And one of those greatest gifts that I've gotten from you is decorum. I recall as the minority leader, you would push decorum. I didn't know how to spell it, so I wasn't interested in it. However, through your leadership, I learned it well. Especially, you didn't expect decorum, you demanded it. That was the big initiative that gave me that teaching, and I absolutely appreciate that. Through our relationships building, you were always above everyone else, in my opinion. And I thank you for those lessons learned that I continue to call on today, and I constantly remember where that came from. And that did come from you, Steve. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Pat, and I wish you the very best in the future. And I'll just let it go with that.
You also, Steve. Thank you, and I was happy to be in on this.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Representative Long. Thank you, Representative Massimilla. Great job with that technology. We have 1 or 2 more calls. I don't know if the Trump Force One call is going to be last. Representative Massimilla is driving this final piece of the of our session, a non-traditional session, obviously. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for letting us have the ability to suspend the rules slightly to include refreshments. One time, yes.
Say Mr. Speaker with 3 heads.
I know.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Laura. This is Linda, and say what you want to Steve. Go.
Hi, Steve. A blasphemy passed.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
And David Welch is with us also.
She knows.
Oh, really?
Okay, yeah. And his wife? No.
No.
Oh,
No,
that's
just David.
wonderful.
So what would you like to say?
What, dear?
What would you like to say to Steve?
I'm just going to say that they're going to lose an awful good leader from the House when he moves. But I wish him luck in his commissioner's job.
Well, Laura Panalakis, although somebody else has the title now as Dean of the House, to me, you will always be the Dean. And this is Representative Laura Panalakis, was my vice chair when I chaired criminal justice. So it was the troika, myself, Laura, and David. And thank you, Laura. And we all want, myself and David and Linda want to get over to try to see you sometime soon.
I'd love that.
So would we.
good luck to you and have a great time at your party.
Thanks so much. God bless you.
Thanks, Laura.
Okay, dear. Bye-bye.
One more.
Laura Pinalakis, former, the longest serving member last term. Okay, the last note that I have, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. It has something to do with a possible call from Trump Force One. I don't know what Representative Massa Miller is going to have happen here, but this, if there's a connection, this will be our last testimonial. While she is working the
Diligently.
reminder to the committee members for the photo afterwards.
Probably the president's tie.
There's technical things.
I don't know that it's the president. It may be. I do not know what's going to happen here. The former president.
Hi, this is Al. At this time, I am probably in the pool, hanging out somewhere. Please leave a message. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Al, what are you doing? You're supposed to be ready. Call us soon. Thank you. Bye.
Another Marine.
Yes.
Good comment.
The first sergeant will need to stand by for a counseling session. Okay, that wraps it up. I'm going to wield the gavel. Thank you, Deb, for taking our picture. We'll see those of you who can make it down in 210 for some refreshments because the rules have been suspended. Last call. Anybody in committee with anything? Representative Gagne? No. Yes. Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Wait. Representative, Mr. Vice Chair, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One last thing to wrap up, something I forgot. One last dig at Steve. Last week when we're at the LOB, we came in, we were having a talk, and I asked him, I said, how's your election going? He says, I think it's going pretty good. He said, I'm running unopposed. I said, I think it's going to be close, but I think you can pull it out.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.